I occasionally drank too much, and I did on that night. I was pulled over. I admitted to the policeman that I had been drinking. I paid a fine, and I regret that it happened.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 historical figures you didn't know got arrested.
And your appreciation has been most intelligent. I congratulate you on the great success of your performance.
For this list, we're looking at historical figures that you may or may not know were arrested at some point. These have to be real arrests. So Alfred Hitchcock's father having an officer fake arrest him as a child for getting bad grades doesn't count. Messed up though, right? Which arrest were you not aware of? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, Plato. This is more of a house arrest, but arrest all the same. When Dionysius I died, his son Dionysius II took the throne. Philosopher Plato was persuaded by Dion, Dionysius Jr.'s uncle, to come to the Sicilian palace in an advisory position, in the hopes that the young ruler would incorporate philosophy into his rule. However, when Uncle Dion was exiled for sedition, Plato became a prisoner of the tyrannical nephew, essentially under house arrest.
Are you putting me under house arrest?
Do not mock me, boy, for I am in a foul disposition.
In time, Plato was granted leave back to Athens, where he stayed until he was once more invited to the palace. He actually went and got trapped again. He returned home eventually, but that second time was on you, Plato.
All right, Plato. Sounds like you've had enough already. Let's go.
Number 9, Ken Kesey. Best known for writing the novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey was arrested in 1965 for marijuana possession. That in itself isn't super interesting, but the story behind the arrest reads like a movie. Kesey evaded arrest for months by faking his own death. With the help of some friends, Kesey parked his car on a cliff's edge in Eureka, California, and left a note in the vehicle. He then sought refuge in Mexico. Unfortunately, the FBI was not buying the front and continued to search for the author, eventually catching him 8 months later. Kesey served 5 months in a Redwood City prison for his clever crimes.
The small can overcome the little by outsmarting it and
with a little luck.
With a little luck and a little love.
The little guy can beat the big guy.
Number 8, Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a baseball superstar, and he spent one day in jail in 1921 for speeding tickets.
Nobody's done this since Babe Ruth in the 32 World Series.
Having paid $100 in fines, Ruth still needed to do his time, and he did so. However, on the same day as his jail time, he was slated to play a baseball game. If he was not present for said game, he would have had to pay a $500 fine to the team. Therefore, upon leaving the jail at 4 p.m., Ruth sped across New York City with a police escort. Irony, in order to make the last part of the game. Hey, it pays to be a big deal in sports.
You got him out of jail.
That doesn't make him a client. It was a speeding ticket, for Christ's sake.
Number 7, Cervantes. Miguel de Cervantes, the author of Don Quixote, is not a man whose history is clear. A lot of details are unknown. However, we do know he had his brushes with the law. In the 19th century, a historian discovered an arrest warrant from 1569 in Cervantes' name, in which he was charged with wounding a man in a duel.
I move for no man.
So be it!
His jail time came later in life, however, in the late 16th century. He worked first as a purchasing agent and then as a tax collector, and was arrested several times for irregularities in his finances, spending short amount of time in jail each time. Nothing to stab a windmill over, but interesting to know all the same. Number 6, Ulysses S. Grant. Even presidents aren't safe from the long arm of the law, and Ulysses S. Grant found this out in 1872.
I hope we don't get a speeding ticket. I hate to end up in jail.
The Civil War hero was arrested in Washington for the heinous crime of, wait for it, speeding in his horse and carriage. You see, Grant was a big fan of horses and horsepower.
Of course, this is Central Park. This was designed in 1850 by Joe Pepitone.
He would routinely speed through the streets of Washington. The speeding epidemic began to cause a problem in Washington. Officer William H. West pulled him over once, letting him off with a warning. However, the very next evening, West once again caught the president, this time taking him in with another group of speed demons. Fines were paid and such, but Grant did not show up for his court date. Number 5, Karl Marx. It shouldn't come as a big surprise that Karl Marx was arrested at some point, given his political views and controversial publications. His first arrest, however, was basically for drunk and disorderly conduct when Marx was a student at the University of Bonn in 1835.
We're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Marx was involved with some extracurricular clubs, namely a radical politics assembly, the Poets Club, and a drinking organization called the Trier Tavern Club. The drinking club was known for antagonizing the wealthier students on campus, and one of these incidents got Marx thrown in jail at one point.
I'm a zit. Get it? All right, you bastard. Let's go right here.
Later in life, Marx was arrested and accused of providing weapons to workers in Belgium. Number 4. Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde is a celebrated writer, famous for works like The Picture of Dorian Gray and The Importance of Being Earnest. He was perhaps just as well known for his dedication to art for art's sake, his bombastic and outrageous personality, and his run-ins with the law. Sadly, 19th century London was a far less progressive place than it is today, and it was only in 1967 that sexual activity between two men was decriminalized.
The sentence of the court is that you will be imprisoned and held to hard labor for 2 years.
Shame. Pervert.
This was what Wilde was tried and convicted of in 1895. He served 2 years hard labor on the charges of, quote, gross indecency, which was the maximum charge. Wilde once said, quote, I have no objection to anyone's sex life, as long as they don't practice it in the street and frighten the horses.
Where your life leads you, you must go.
Number 3. Joseph Stalin. Most of the political revolutionaries in history spent time in jail at some point. Former Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin had quite the rap sheet prior to his rise to power. Between 1902 and 1913, he was arrested 7 times and sent into exile 6 times.
Into exile. I must go. Failed, I have.
He wasn't kept in exile very well, as he escaped 5 out of the 6 times. He was arrested for his revolutionary activities, as one would expect, spending 6 to 8 months in prison at a time. In spreading his Marxist-Leninist political beliefs, inciting riots and public disturbances eventually earned him some prison time or exile. It's puzzling that they kept exiling him, as he would frequently escape.
How do you just keep coming back every year?
I love the game, Annie. I love it.
Number 2. Bill Gates. Bill Gates, co-founder of the tech giant known as Microsoft, was arrested 3 times in his younger days. This may sound intriguing, but honestly, all 3 times were for traffic violations, which is arguably completely uninteresting. Did anyone truly believe Bill Gates was a wild child in his youth?
I've seen better.
He was arrested in 1975 for driving without a license, then in 1977 for supposedly running a stop sign, and a 3rd time in 1989 for suspicion of drunk driving, a sentence which was later reduced.
Are you saying this nerd is innocent?
Yes.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. George W. Bush. The second U.S. president to make our list, George W. Bush has admitted that in his youth, he spent more time than he would have liked drinking. And eventually, he chose to abstain from alcohol entirely.
Years ago, I made some mistakes. I occasionally drank too much, and I did on that night.
But before he came to that decision, Bush was arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol while in Maine near his summer home in 1976. He paid a $150 fine and had his license suspended for a time. And that was that until the year 2000, when Bush was elected president.
This happened 24 years ago. I do find it interesting that it's come out 4 or 5 days before an election.
His arrest record came up as an issue when the president wished to enter Canada, as according to Canada's criminal code, he could not enter the country freely having committed an indictable crime by Canada's standards.
Thank you. Now watch this drive.
President Bush didn't actually make his first official visit to the Great White North until 2004, but the reason for this delay is probably unrelated. Probably. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.